Welcome to Down to Dunk Emergency Pod! The Thunder have traded for Kemba Walker, as reported by Adrian Wojnarowski this morning at 8:11 a.m. Central Standard Time. His tweet says that the Celtics are trading Kemba Walker, number 16 overall pick in the 2021 draft, and a 2025 second-round draft pick to Oklahoma City for Al Horford, Moses Brown, and a 2023 second-round pick. Woo, boy, Al. I've got Alex Spears here with me. Alex.
Oh, boy.
Thoughts, feelings?
I woke up 7 minutes after the tweet drop. It's the first time I've ever woken up to a text about something that big. I saw Jay's text. It was such an exciting way to start my day. You know, just right out of bed, boom, rush of adrenaline. And I mean, the first takeaway was how rare it is for not just us, but the larger media to come up with a fake trade, and then that exact fake trade happens. Because this is basically the trade. I mean, we didn't know Moses Brown would be included, but the idea of Kemba and that 16th pick for Horford, that was what we had discussed a few weeks ago.
We've talked about it on this show, yeah.
Yeah, so for that exact one to come through, you know, it's kind of cool. It made you feel smart. It's like, oh, yeah. Gives you more confidence to do more fake trades.
Yeah. And, I mean, are you shocked at the value? Because even we talked about that. I mean, I don't think you thought they could get the 16th pick out of a deal like that.
I don't know. Like, I will say, because a few weeks ago when we discussed this deal, I feel like we discussed this exact deal and we both came to the conclusion that we weren't really into it.
Sure. I mean, even did we talk about the 16th pick?
I think we did, because our whole point was that, like, what's the point of trading for like another middling first pick at this point?
Yeah. Perhaps that is the point of view. I just didn't even think they would do it, to be honest. Like, I didn't think that this would actually happen. I didn't know that Boston would want to do it. Like, I understand there's a fine fit there with Horford. I just didn't think Boston would really even want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they were at a point where they had to do something. Because there had already been reports about Kemba and the Celtics essentially wanting a breakup. And so at that point, it's like, well, what else can you do? I mean, we've heard the idea of the Porzingis trade, but I mean, with everything that's going on in Dallas right now, the fact that they don't have a GM currently, unless it's Haralabah, I mean, it makes sense that a deal like that wouldn't be happening right now. Yeah. And maybe Boston just felt like, this is a deal we like. We know that Horford can come in and give us something. Like, I know they like Robert Williams, but he's been hurt so often. It's like, can you really count on him? And then you get Moses Brown as, you know, your third center, maybe second center if Robert Williams is hurt all the time. I sort of get it. You know, I think they get it's more about a money deal.
Yeah, the fit is there.
Certainly. The fit is there, but also like the money deal, because Horford, you know, let's say it doesn't work out. Let's say he's not good. There was actually somebody who had tweeted out looking at his like adjusted plus minus over the last couple of years, and it does appear that he may have fallen off a cliff. But whatever.
That is don't do that. Like, that's using stats in a way that is stupid.
But let's just say, ignore that. Let's just say that it doesn't work out. Let's just say he's not good. He is 36 or whatever. They can still get off of him the following year for only $14 million, whereas Kemba was going to be like 38 guaranteed in 2 years, no matter what, because it's a player option. He's going to pick up that player option, we assume. Yeah. Although maybe he becomes the next Chris Paul and he is so good, he takes the Thunder deep into the playoffs that he can actually turn down that player option and get a brand new deal. Maybe. We'll see.
I mean, we'll see. And for the Thunder, it doesn't, like, the money doesn't matter at all. I mean, like, none.
It still doesn't matter. They could do another deal like this and it wouldn't matter.
Yes, because it didn't matter before Horford. Like, they could have kept Horford and just absorbed a ton of money onto their cap sheet. And now, this doesn't make any difference whatsoever to the Thunder's plans. I think from the Thunder's perspective, it's just more of the same for Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, it's just another distressed asset that the Thunder acquire by using what used to be a distressed asset, and they end up getting more for it. I mean, we've seen it with Russell Westbrook. We saw it with Chris Paul. We saw it with Cantor. We saw it with Melo. We saw it with Schroeder. I mean, like the long list of times the Thunder have done this and then rehab their value and flip them it's obviously a pattern in a way that they acquire assets and a way that they do business. I mean, and Kemba's like younger than a lot of the guys they've done this with. He's only 31. Now he's an older 31. His body is breaking down. He doesn't have like the body of a 31-year-old point guard because he has had major injury issues. But, you know, acquiring Chris Paul at the age that they did with the injury issues that he had, he got better, but he had to make some personal changes too. And so it's like Kemba willing to make those personal changes. And, you know, did the Thunder get him to? And like, what does that look like? You can even ask yourself, does Kemba put on a Thunder uniform? My guess would be yes. But would you be shocked if they find some way to flip him for maybe not tremendous value, but flip him before the summer's over? Like, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be shocked by that.
Yeah, the contract aspect of it, like, I'm not worried at all. I mean, I think you could make a case that there is kind of like a pyramid scheme aspect to this, where you just like keep flipping these assets, and at the end of the day, are they just going to be left holding the bag? Like, they just have some huge contract that they can't do anything with. They finally reach the end of whatever this asset play is, but at that point, It doesn't matter.
You're so far in the money, it doesn't matter.
Right? Yeah. So that
even,
I'm not worried
for the 16th
about
pick
at all. Although I would like to ask you, you know, you brought up all those names, Melo, Cantor, Chris Paul. Where do you think Kemba ranks in terms of how difficult of an asset you think he would be to rehabilitate and flip?
I just tend to think he wouldn't be that difficult because he'll be an expiring contract after next season. So if he does play a season with the Thunder, then he's expiring, right? Like, that helps. They need him to play games. It's not that Kemba Walker's a bad player, because he's not a bad player. It's that he didn't play enough games. I mean, you just even look at his raw stats. Like, he almost scored 20 points per game this past season. So I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm not actually that worried. Like, I was, even after, and we talked about it, like Horford's stats for this season, like, oh, he really didn't have like that much of an improvement from Philly. The perception probably changed a little bit for him, but not that much, right? And you didn't think they'd be able to trade him. You thought that they'd be going into next season with him. And
yeah, and part of that
it wasn't illogical.
Part of that, honestly, was not wanting to take on Kemba, and not because of his contract, but especially before the draft is why this is so crazy to me. Like, if they had gone to the draft and gotten Evan Mobley, and they ended up like with pick 2 or 3 or whatever, and that's who they target and that's who they take, then I'm like, okay, well, whatever. There's going to be minutes. But what happens if they get Jalen Suggs in this draft and they can't trade Kemba? Like, what do you do?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're not going to make decisions based on Kemba Walker. That's just not going to happen.
Which is what I would hope. I would hope that you just start Suggs and Shea and not worry about it.
There's absolutely no chance. To me, at this point, when they traded for Chris Paul, one of the major goals, I believe, for that season was to rehab Chris Paul's value and to flip him. Right? It was like near the top of the priority list that season. Horford, it goes further down the list, right? It's development, and obviously it was. Like, they sat him, right? I feel like Kemba's perhaps even more diminished than that, where it's like, if we can, because they have like continued to flip and continue the asset management that they have, like, it's been tremendous. I just don't think it's that important for them to do this. I feel like they could even do like a Kelly Oubre type of a trade where you feel like, man, they did not get the amount of juice they should have out of that Kelly Oubre trade. I think it could be similar to that, where they're like, you know, like, it doesn't really matter what we get for Kemba. We're already like way better off now with what we've done through the years, to where, like, if we got like a decent future second round pick for Kemba, like we would move on. I don't know that that's true, but to me, like if they're sitting at 3 and they think Jalen Suggs is the best player, they're going to select him and they're going to play him. They're not going to be like, oh well, we got to start Kemba because we're trying to rehab his value. Like I just think that's so far down the list at this point. So I just wouldn't worry about it at all.
It's funny though that you bring up like being happy, or like maybe they get to the point where like, yeah, we'll just take a second, which is literally what we've said about the last 2 versions of this. Like with
I know,
and they got
the 16th pick.
Yeah, and when we got Al Horford, when we got Chris Paul, like the exact same thinking. And so maybe we just let it play out because, like, I mean, we have to let it play out because we've seen it work enough times.
Yeah.
It's like, who cares? Like, obviously, Presti knows what he's doing. Like,
yeah, I had very little doubt that they would get a deal done with Horford just because I don't think they would make it as apparent as they did at exit interviews and not do a deal eventually, or at least have an idea that there could be a deal made. And certainly Brad Stevens taking the job in Boston is a huge part of this. It's a huge part of why the deal got done. And it's probably a big deal as to why a deal didn't get done at the trade deadline with Danny Ainge, right? But they've changed who's the president of basketball ops, and the fact that they have a relationship. And, it's also obviously Horford is probably one of Brad's guys, right? Like all these coaches have their guys. And he probably loved Al Horford. I mean, Mark Daigneault loved Al Horford.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised to see it now. Now, if Danny would have kept the job, maybe this deal doesn't get done. But because Brad is there now, I think that's I think it's a big reason as to why this deal has been done today.
And in terms of going back to Kemba, there's also the possibility they could flip him before the season starts. I mean, that
definitely
Porzingis for Kemba deal that we talked about on Slam and Jam, I think 2 weeks ago, like that was the most feasible trade I had heard. Like it made sense to me then for both teams. Yep. And knowing OKC's history with Porzingis, like it would not shock me if that happened before the season started.
Yeah,
I don't know. I do think, however, that like Dallas, it would be hard for Dallas to give up Porzingis without getting more in that deal, even though he has the extra year. I think that'd be really hard for them to do. So then it's like, does OKC really want to give up any type of asset for Porzingis? And I don't know.
Depends on what happens Tuesday, I think. Yeah, it depends on what happens Tuesday. And then what happens
if they do end up with Mobley, probably not.
That's where it makes a difference, right? Like if you get Suggs and let's say they get 3, 16, 18, and they take Jalen Green or Jalen Suggs, one of those guys, like then like, okay, like we may be interested in bringing Porzingis into this and seeing if we can rehab his value. And also, I said this on the Dream Team, like Kemba feels like a Mav. Like he just has a Mavs feel to him, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. I mean, honestly, the healthy version of Kemba would be good on that team.
Yes. I mean, he's like super Jalen Brunson. Like Jalen Brunson's they have a different style of play, but like these.
Although part of the reason why he feels like a Mav is because he feels like a Carlisle point guard.
That's true. That's true. And also Donnie Nelson was a part of that.
Right.
So right. What we know a Mav to be could be very different here in the next few weeks because of all those reasons. So,
right.
But I think there are Kemba Walker destinations that make sense, and I just would not be surprised to see him moved. I think ideally you move on from him before next season starts, just because I don't love that slot and the minutes that he would be taking up. That would not be preferable to the Thunder in my opinion, but also like I would kind of expect him to play. I kind of expect him to play for the Thunder.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's not a huge usage guy. Like it's not like bringing Russell Westbrook and playing him on this young team.
Right.
I mean, Kemba can play off ball as well.
And for Westbrook.
Honestly, if they got super lucky, landed the number 1 pick, took Cade, you could do a 3-guard lineup with those 3 guys.
Yes, 3-guard lineups have been done here with Shea involved. So I'm not stressed about it. I mean, even if worst case scenario, Kemba's like, I don't want to play in Oklahoma City, which I don't think that happens. Like Kemba doesn't seem to be that kind of guy. If that, let's say it does happen, like you've already squeezed so much out of this asset since really their decision to re-sign Cantor and to match the Portland offer for Cantor. I mean, that's kind of where all that began. Like, sure, like it just doesn't really matter anymore. And this 16th pick is really interesting because it's just more ammo for them at draft night to, let's say they do get the 18th pick, they get the Heat pick and they have 16. Like there's so many times that two like picks in the teens have been traded for like the 10th pick or the 11th pick or whatever. Like that happens like every couple years in the draft. So, and the Thunder traded up to get Pokusevski in this last draft. I mean, I don't think they're going to take. They have 5 picks in the first 36 picks of this draft. I don't think they're going to walk away with 5 players. I would be surprised if that were the case. But they have more ammo now. That 16th pick it could be their second best pick that they have and could help them. Now, I don't like people are throwing out the idea like, what if they get 7, 16, 18? Could that get them 4? Like, probably not. That's probably not what those other teams are looking for with regards to value. But could you take 16 and 18 and take on a bad contract and get 10? Yes, probably so.
Yeah, and I think it would take a team who's a little light on future picks.
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking at some of the teams. I mean, for instance, like a team like Indiana, who it's not like they have a lot of outgoing picks, but it's a team that could see a lot of roster changes this year and may end up just by necessity being a younger team. If you offered them 16, 18 for 13, just to jump up to there, and there's someone the Thunder has identified, I could see that making sense for a team like Indiana.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that could for sure happen. And maybe that's like Josh Giddey makes some sense there, or the Thunder like Moses Moody, or whoever it is that they like, they can jump up and go get them. I could certainly see that happening, and they've opened themselves up to do that. And also, like they've been in position and will continue to be in position to take on bad money from a team that would maybe prefer to trade out or to just get their cap sheet a little cleaner, or whatever mandate their ownership has. The Thunder are there to do that. So it just allows them to be crazy flexible on draft night. It allows them to, and maybe they trade out of 18, but they like a guy at 16. It's just the possibilities. They have way more possibilities today. It doesn't necessarily change anything about timeline or anything like that. I wouldn't use Kemba as a signal to say that they are for sure taking a big man. I wouldn't also say that trading away Moses Brown signals that they're trying to get a
Isaiah
big man
Roby,
that, like,
starting center.
Yeah, sure, whatever. I mean, who cares? This doesn't mean that they're for sure trying to get Evan Mobley. It doesn't mean that they're not. But this is not a signal of anything. This is you have to put this in like the bucket of acquiring a distressed asset, trading away a former distressed asset so they could get more picks. Like that's what this is all about. Like that's what this trade is about. And it's about being a small market. We talk about it all the time. You're probably exhausted with us talking about it. You're probably exhausted following a small market team. But the truth is, like, they have no way to stack the deck except for like this. And people are all over the place with regards to like how they view this. But there's some really, really bad takes out there about how, well, we just don't really know how this is going to work out. We'll have to see how this works out. Well, he has too many picks. Don't you think that people are going to, demand, him, they have more picks from Sam just because he has them? Like, come on, guys. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, those conversations are absolutely ridiculous, and it's stupid. It's like they're trying too hard to be smart that now you're dumb.
Yeah, it's two things. One, it's assuming that a team, if they had equal offers on the table, but they get an extra pick from OKC, they would take the lesser offer because OKC won't give 2 additional picks, which no team would ever do that. But also, being able to overpay in a trade and not have to worry about it is a feature, not a bug of having all these picks. That is one of the benefits of having all these picks, is that you can overpay in a deal for a guy you really want and not have to worry about it. You can literally do whatever you want. That is a good thing, that you're in a position where you could give away extra picks and not have to care about it to get your guy. You can literally target whoever you want, and you're always going to have the ammunition.
Yes. I'm always telling my rich friends that it's actually bad that they have too much money. It's just,
you shouldn't.
I mean, because they're having to, my guy had to pay $50 for a pizza the other day because they knew he had the money. They knew he had it. And they held out. They held out until he handed over the $50 so he could have his pepperoni pizza.
People think that they think that there's some like Goldilocks amount of picks where it's like not too little, not too much. You have to get in this sweet spot of picks, and that's the best amount of first round picks to have. Like they assume that there's some negative. There's some point where once you pass it, oh, now it's negative. Now it's a negative value.
Yeah.
But for me, it's all about your ability to go get the guys you want to get. And you're going to do that with young players, picks, and contracts. And, well, we didn't even mention it with Kemba Walker, but he is now one of those contracts. Like, he is one of those contracts. If a deal did come up for a legitimate star this year or next year, if Kemba's still on this team, he is one of those contracts, which Al Horford was kind of fulfilling that role for the time being.
Yeah. I mean, you can't just galaxy brain yourself to thinking that having too many picks is bad, because the Thunder don't have many ways to get better, and they don't have many avenues to get there. And this is the way. Like, this is the only way. And there's really no historical precedent for this in the NBA.
Right.
Like the closest thing is the Sixers, but the Sixers didn't have this many. Like, to think that the outcome. One, like, you cannot predict the outcome. I can't sit here and say this is for sure going to work. The Thunder are going to have a championship caliber team in 5 years. It's going to be wonderful. Sit back, relax, Thunder fans, because that's coming your way. I can't say that. You also can't sit back and say, well, this is probably going to be a failure because they had too many picks and it's just, they have no value now. Like, that's not true.
And so much of it,
many teams want those picks.
So much of it is people judging it by what Danny Ainge did when he had all those picks, and seeing that he was never able to get like a real deal done. We all know about like the 4 picks they offered for Justice Winslow, but he was never able to consolidate those picks in any meaningful way, which I get that is a potential outcome. But how can you look at the last few years of Sam Presti wheeling and dealing and think that he's just going to sit on his hands and just keep all of these picks for all of time? Like, he literally cannot do it. He cannot keep all these picks.
And he won't. He won't do it. He already consolidated in the last draft. He consolidated his picks in the last draft to get Poku. And they didn't flinch.
And that's one of those deals. You could argue that was an overpay. Giving up those 2 first-round picks just to move up a minuscule amount in that draft. But that's the entire point. He was able to get the guy that he targeted. And at that point, who cares about the extra pick?
Yeah, nobody cares. Nobody's freaking out about that. Any that think that Moses Brown is the real gem of this trade?
I would say that Moses Brown is going to be their 3rd-string center to start the season, and that is probably where he's going to end up in this league. So I think that in that sense, it's a good fit for Moses. I mean, it's obviously not a better opportunity for him than Oklahoma City.
It's not, no, because he's not better than Time Lord. He's obviously not better than Horford.
And the other thing is, other than Horford, I guess Horford is a little flexible. You could theoretically play him at the power forward, though I don't think you really want to at this point in his career. So all 3 of those guys are basically locked into the center position. So if Moses gets more than 8 minutes per game next year, I will be impressed for him. Either somebody got injured or he really is making significant strides. He's never playing 20 minutes over a season. Like, I do not think that's going to happen.
He's not a good defender. He he's got really long arms and can rebound. And he will block some shots, but he's not a good defender. And he's not that great of a rim defender. So I don't know what, I mean, we saw what he could do when there was no scouting report on him. And then we saw what he could do when there was a scouting report on him. And yeah, he was feasting and had some really big nights when there was basically no scouting report from Moses Brown. But after 2 weeks of him playing, like, did you see him do anything? I mean, go take a look at even the box scores. If you want to talk about box scores, I want to talk about what he did numbers wise. Like, go see what he did after playing a lot of minutes for a couple of weeks. Like, he wasn't able to do all that much. He's just not. I mean, he could improve, certainly. Could he get better? Of course. He could get better. He could become a nice player. Yes. Do I see that happening soon? Did I see that in Oklahoma City? You don't really see it. Like, I didn't. He put up big numbers on a bad team, and he's kind of your classic case of like, good stats, bad team. Like, somebody has to put up the numbers. Somebody has to do it. And for a little bit, he did it.
And in terms of throw-ins, like, obviously you're probably not throwing in Charlie Brown. Like, Boston doesn't necessarily care about that. But in terms of actual players you could throw in, I would much prefer them throwing in Moses over Ty Jerome, over Kenrich Williams. I mean,
sure.
I guess Isaiah Roby is where, for me, it's a coin toss. I know you would prefer keeping Isaiah Roby. But yeah, of the guys who would potentially have some value as a throw-in, for me, Moses would be the first choice. Because again, what was Shea's biggest accomplishment this year? He was first in drives. He was amazing at getting the basket. Basketball Index had that tweet, I think yesterday, about the guys who had the highest field goal percentage at the rim on the toughest shots at the rim. Zion was 1, Shea was 3. So not only was Shea good at driving, he was good at finishing at the rim, even though the court wasn't necessarily set up for him. And part of that was having Moses Brown out there, because Moses Brown is not stretching the floor ever. So I'm fine with getting rid of Moses. We wish him the best of luck. Hope he does great in Boston. And maybe there's a potential there because his competitors are a guy who's been injured a lot and a guy who's about to be 36 years old. So like, maybe he does have some opportunity that's untapped.
Yeah, perhaps he does. And if he does, that's great. I hope that it works out for him. But I don't see, as of today, I don't see that being like a massive loss or setback for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I see it as a guy that they developed. I think that he and his agent and everybody were excited that he got a deal, period. Right. And I hope that he continues to develop and gets better, because I think he's a good dude. And I think that he works really hard, and he's got the size and length and everything that a player like that you would want. But laterally, he's not great. Footwork's not great. He's got a ways to go.
Now, I would like to. Can we bring up a trade that is brought up in the chat, and I've also seen it on Twitter, and I just want to shoot it down right now. The idea of trading Kemba to the Pelicans for Eric Bledsoe, Steven Adams, and a first. First of all, you would need more than a first, but
to take on both, like, you need a first for both.
At minimum. Now, I would potentially be willing. I'm open to the idea of bringing Adams back, not as like a guy you're going to play a lot of minutes, but just as a guy and maybe you can get a big asset coming back. Like, if you could get one of the unprotected Lakers or Bucks pick in the future, I would definitely consider that. But I would not take back both of those contracts, especially Eric Bledsoe, because Bledsoe feels like one, unlike Kemba, where you do feel like there's some potential for rehab. Bledsoe feels like one, like, you're going to be buying him out. And the Thunder typically do not buy out players. That seems like a guy who's going to get bought out wherever he ends up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to keep Zion Williamson, is that the trade that's going to turn everything around for you? I mean, I don't know. They're in a tough spot.
Because it doesn't really save them a ton of money.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know if it saves them any money, because Bledsoe's about 19 and Adams is about 17 going forward. And then Kemba's going to be right around 36 to 38 these next 2 years. So it doesn't save you a ton of money. You do open up a roster spot, I guess, but you're also having to probably give up significant assets in that deal. So I don't even know if that's the best deal for the Pelicans. I think the best deal for the Pelicans, I do think they could get off of Steven Adams for like a first. And then I think you stretch and waive Eric Bledsoe. I don't know if you're going to be able to get rid of him.
Yeah, Bledsoe's 18.1 next season and 19.3 2023. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I really wouldn't want. He feels like if he lands on your team, he's going to be on your team. But he could also be, like you talked about with Kemba, like he could be a contract that helps you get to whatever your next deal is or whatever for a bigger player if they so choose to trade for somebody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a nice deal for OKC to continue to flip the asset and continue to get value and to add more first-round picks to their stockpile of first-round picks. It's the smartest thing they can do at this point to bend the odds in their favor. Like, this is the only way they can do it, and this is the only path they have to trying to get back to where they were years ago. And now it's all about what happens in the draft lottery, and it's all about what happens at the draft and who they get. Now, even if they get the number one pick, they're not guaranteed to be a great team. They may get the 5th pick and that be the best outcome for them. We just don't know. That's where it's like there's tons of uncertainty. I mean, I don't think anybody on draft night thought Russell Westbrook would be the best player in that draft. Same with James Harden. Kevin Durant was much more clear on draft night, but we just don't know. But we do know that they're putting themselves in the best position possible, and now they're more flexible and they have more ammo, and that can only be good.
Yeah, and for Thunder fans, like, it just cushions the potential fall. Like, let's say we do end up, worst case scenario is 7-18. Well, now it's 7-16-18. So
Yes.
It's like, it makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, if they left the draft with picking at 7 and picking at 10, you feel better about that than 7 and 18.
Yeah.
Like, there will be somebody between 6 and 12 will be an all-star. That will happen. And if you're picking twice in that range, you give yourself a better chance to nail that pick, because more than likely you're going to miss. But if you're picking twice, obviously the odds are twice as good to find that guy. Okay. Anything else before we bounce? I'm really sad. We did a fry pod this morning and had some really good discussion on bulls snorting, and we had a great discussion on how Luke hates all trains, all sizes of trains. It's just a shame that that pod is basically lost in time.
What, you're not even going to release it?
Oh, it's there, but I'm just saying, like, this pod will kill that. So if you're listening to this pod, be sure to go listen to the Fry Pod, where we discuss lots of things. Oh, before we go, come to the Mule in Edmond. There are 2 locations of the Mule, and if you haven't ever been, one, it's very delicious. It's a gourmet grilled cheese restaurant. They have everything there is delicious. So come there, be hungry, buy food from them. There are 2 locations. The one that we are going to be at is the one in Edmond, 16 South Broadway. Go to that location on Tuesday night. Be there 6:30-ish so you can have some food and enjoy your time. And then 7:30 is the start of the draft lottery show, and we'll all be there as all the action unfolds. So be there. Come hang out with us. We will do a live podcast after the lottery is revealed. And so after we all kind of calm down from either being happy or sad, whatever it is. So come hang out with us. It's going to be a great time. Again, 16 South Broadway, Edmond, Oklahoma. That's the Mule in Edmond. Come hang out with us.
And Andrew, everyone, make sure you tune into Saturday Slam and Jam tomorrow, because we haven't recorded it yet. But we have a guest this week that I think will shock some of you. It shocked us.
It's still shocking. Yes, we're very excited. This is some big days. Some big days for us, Al.
Real big day.
Should be really fun. Thanks so much for listening to our show. We do appreciate you listening. If this is the first time you listen to us, be sure to subscribe. You can subscribe to us on YouTube as well if you're just listening to the podcast. Please do so. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you guys again on Monday.